we be doing this show?
The Wrestling Life.
Hey everybody, it's The Wrestling Life. It's episode 401. It is the last day of February here, 2025. I'm Ethan.
I'm Liam.
Liam, we have so much to talk about this week.
And as always, so many things we can't talk about on the first and only wrestling podcast. Welcome back, Crab fans.
The Crab fans, yeah. All right, 401. And we have an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view coming up this weekend to discuss. We have Dwayne Johnson to discuss and his allegedly ketamine-fueled rant on last Friday's SmackDown and follow-up press conference, which was meant to clarify things and clarified absolutely nothing. And we'll touch a little on AEW as they are headed towards Revolution next week. So this weekend, Elimination Chamber, Toronto. John Cena's last time in Toronto. He's not allowed to visit again, even as a tourist.
Weird, they haven't mentioned that it's his last time at all on TV.
I swear, somehow, I'm not going to sidetrack. I'm not going to derail this whole show. I'm just going to say, WWE Raw this week made me viscerally angry that it was. And it's like, this show is commercials for commercials. It's not even, it's all talking. It's not good talking. Anyway, there was like a basic Pink by Numbers tag match in the main event that the audience is absolutely losing their minds for because they're so starved for good entertainment and good wrestling on these shows. It's like SmackDown is 3 hours and there's a fair amount of like boring matches on SmackDown where there's like actually stuff happening in the ring. Raw is talking and it's bad talking. Raw made me so angry this week.
I mean, I don't disagree.
Anyway. Well, good. All right. We have 4 matches announced for the show so far. I suspect they may add another during SmackDown this week, but maybe not because we also have Dwayne Johnson and Cody Rhodes gonna talk on this show. So The Rock showed up at SmackDown last Friday. He announced WrestleMania for New Orleans for 2026. He turned himself babyface. He turned himself heel. He turned himself babyface. He turned himself heel. He sang. He congratulated himself for Moana 2 making more than $1 billion. He congratulated himself for being the most followed American man on Instagram with over 500 million followers. And somewhere in here, he asked Cody Rhodes to be his champion, and that all he wanted in exchange was Cody's soul. And I'm not sure what this means. And the press conference afterwards, people were just asking Dwayne about his cheat meals while he sat there with his smart guy glasses on. So, what did you think of Dwayne Johnson on SmackDown last week and setting up this? Anyway, he told Cody that he wants his answer at Elimination Chamber in Toronto. So Cody must respond to Dwayne Johnson this week. Thoughts on this whole scenario?
I didn't like it. It was, I think, in the running for the worst promos The Rock has ever cut. Like, it has to be. And I'm including like 96 babyface Rocky Maivia promos. It was rambling. It was
Didn't
weird.
make a lick of sense.
Did not make any sense to your point. Yeah. And you touched on it already at the top of the show, but I do love it's quickly becoming a yearly transition for The Rock to show up on TV, make some sort of declaration about something, and then have to do a press conference a few later to explain what exactly it is he's doing, and still not really explaining it properly. This is now 2 years in a row that this has happened. So very exciting in that way. I enjoy the part of it where Dwayne just shows up and decides to mess with Paul. That's kind of a fun wrinkle to it. But
Sure.
Unfortunately, he didn't blow up the whole card by deciding he was going to do the Roman match this year. That's unfortunately not in the cards, it seemed. And we found out, thanks to Dwayne's lovely press conference, apparently this never has to end in a wrestling match. this wrestling show on this wrestling storyline on this wrestling show never has to end in a wrestling match. And isn't that just the World Wrestling Federation all wrapped up into one little microcosm with that sentence? Um, Look, Dwayne got another $1 billion movie. He's probably insurances are being a little gun shy about him getting in the ring again. I don't think he got injured last year, but the previous few times he had gotten in the ring to wrestle, he had like immediately torn every muscle in his body. So, if he's got any other movie commitments for the next year or two, he probably is not gonna want to get in the ring. So I can understand why he wants to forward the narrative that it's actually great if he just shows up and becomes the star of the show, but also never wrestles. Um, and hey, Paul and Stephanie did it for years, so I guess he can too. But yeah, I don't know. Like he wants, so they're doing the thing where they want Cody to sell out and be the corporate champion. But as Dwayne pointed out, Cody is already like shows up in a suit to work every week and kisses babies and signs autographs and does media and does everything they want. Like the thing with the Steve Austin thing, and you would think The Rock would understand the appeal of what Steve Austin and versus Vince McMahon would, being that he was there and was like a direct, he was a direct beneficiary of the rise of Steve Austin. The thing was that Steve Austin was loudmouth and swore and flipped everybody the bird and drank beer in the ring and was not the corporate image that the uptight, hoity-toity Vince McMahon wanted for his company. Therein lied the conflict between those two characters in the feud, the biggest money drawing feud of all time. Whereas now we're trying to do that with Cody Rhodes, who is a smiling, short-haired, blonde-haired, blue-eyed babyface, shaking hands, slapping fives, kissing babies, hugging. He hugged The Rock at the start of this segment. They're already friends. They share Terramana tequila together. So like, what exactly is he literally selling his soul? Are we to assume that Dwayne is Satan and he's literally selling his immortal soul to Cody won't be able to go to heaven one day when he shuffles off this mortal coil because Dwayne owns his soul? Is that what we're to assume here? Because otherwise, I don't really get what more TKO or Dwayne would want out of Cody Rhodes. Does he want him to like get the Rock's tattoo on his chest? Like, what does he want? I don't. And herein lies why this was bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't add anything to that other than sorry, I had a popcorn kernel on my teeth. Um I was watching one of those cooking competition shows this week on Food Network, and it's Wild Card Kitchen, and they give you a deck of cards and you draw a card and it makes the meal you have to prepare harder in some way. So like for this one of them was like, oh, you have to use molasses or you can't use dry seasonings or whatever the case. Anyway, the chef makes this yogurt covered sausage inside a ramen noodle crusted tortilla, which reminded me of a time that I went to a restaurant and ordered a pizza that had Granny Smith apple and prosciutto on it. And it tasted really bad. And I think it was chef brain. I think these chefs get chef brain and they just like put stuff like yogurt and sausage or a pizza with apple and ham on it together, and it's chef brain. It's like no, in no universe do any of these things go together, and in no universe do they taste good together. Um, yeah, chef brain. The Rock saying this didn't have to end in a wrestling match. Um, I don't know if he really believes that, but if he does, it's chef brain. It's like what are you doing here? Anyway, I can't wait for this to take up a half hour of my life on Saturday.
Minimum.
Oh yeah.
And no, I mean there will be commercial breaks, but not no hard network considerations here. So he can really draw this out.
Oof. Anyway, presumably that's why there's four matches on this show. One of them an unsanctioned match between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I think I mentioned before, I'm not ready for another round of Sami versus Kevin, but um I like the way they've been building this up. I don't like the unsanctioned gimmick, but uh I almost used a phrase that I hate. It is what it is. How do you feel about Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens on this show?
Yeah, I think they've done their best to make you care. Like I think Sammy's cut some decent interviews leading up to the show, but yeah, I don't know. It's just not. It wasn't time, but it feels like, and I might have said this before, but it just feels like they looked around and they were like, well, these guys are paired off. These guys are paired off. We don't want to put them in the chamber for whatever reason. We had to blow off the Cody Kevin thing, so uh I guess these are like it's just like you paired everybody off, and these guys were like the two left over. So like, well, guess they have to feud. So I mean, none of that. You don't have to do any of that because, of course, it's fake. But and you could do whatever you want. But that's what they've chosen to do. So, like I said, I'm sure it'll be good, and they'll go crazy trying to have a great match, and in it'll probably have the most heat of anything on the show because it's in Canada. But yeah, it doesn't light my world on fire to see Sammy and Kevin feuding again.
We have a WWE Universe mode match with Tiffany Stratton teaming with Trish Stratus against Nia Jax and Candice LeRae on this show. Um, I think Robert on the Everything app would call this a match for the dads. And it's Tiffany and Trish who have a new t-shirt together. Where good news, if you find yourself on any sort of registered offender list, instead of registering, you could just buy the shirt and wear it. I say this as someone who owns multiple pieces of Trish Stratus merchandise, and I just feel like wearing a shirt with Trish and Tiffany on it is like borderline. But so we did an angle last week where Nia sat on Trish and Tiffy together as softly as she possibly could so as not to burst anyone's chest open. Hey, they've tried. They've done a lot of stuff in about 90 seconds total screen time in this in with all four of these participants together. So any thoughts on I mean on paper I should be very excited for this. In actuality, I'm just hoping everyone does well and doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the only bit of intrigue for me is does this lead to a Trish Nia singles match on one of the nights of Mania? Or is this just a one and done for Trish in her hometown, and then Tiffy just moves on to the Charlotte feud from here? But so that's like the only bit of intrigue is like what everyone involved is going to do afterwards, I guess. But um, yeah, I mean, I you would think people would be into this. I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily feel people are ready to connect with Tiffany as a babyface yet, but uh, given the circumstances and who she's teaming with, I'm sure they will like her just fine.
Maybe an underplayed talking point. This is at the former Sky Dome. This is a giant stadium show.
Mm-hmm.
I could see Canada going nuts for Trish Stratus. I was not surprised that Trish showed up at the Royal Rumble because she didn't have any meet and greets booked for that weekend, aside from the one she did with WWE. So that's usually she's not one to leave any meet and greet money on the table. So I think that the fact that I don't believe she's been announced for WrestleCon on Mania weekend, I think that's an indicator she'll be working Mania in some form or fashion. So, yeah, I think we're getting that Trish Nia singles match, which
maybe
will be
it's
a test.
maybe that's to get everybody on the show match, and that's like a lumberjack match.
Hey, I like that. It's a good idea. Got to get the women's intercontinental champion
Mm-hmm. She'll be a
will be
lumberjack.
will be a lumberjack.
It's either that or the women's intercontinental champion challenges for the tag belts, I imagine.
Yeah. Um, I don't want to I don't want to be cruel. Did you watch the Matt, the Intercontinental Championship on Raw this week.
I did.
What'd you think of that?
I didn't think it was great. I I
I
thought the work was okay. The crowd did not care, which didn't help them. Dakota fell down at one
Not at
point.
all.
I think Michael Cole blamed that on Stu the cameraman, but it didn't look great. They didn't.
How you described her tripping over a camera cord and the bump that she took in a very memorable way.
I I don't remember if I said Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry, but it's like somebody running in a cartoon character running in on a freshly waxed floor because like her feet go out from under her, she goes up in the air and then just crashes ass first onto the ground. Like it was such a Looney Tunes bump.
It was an absolute cartoon bump. Dakota Kai is WWE's Yoshihashi, the New gentleman who has been wrestling for like almost 20 years at this point and is pushing 40 years old, and they still speak about him on commentary as though he's a Make-A-Wish kid. It's like he tries so hard. That's kind of how I feel about Dakota Kai. It's like, oh, she's just a wee girl. She's just a wee Kiwi girl from New Zealand, and she's trying to make her dreams come true. And it's like, at some point, guys, Dakota's 36 years old. She is, she has more ACL surgeries than championship wins in her career. And, I'm sure she's a nice person. She's not a good wrestler. It's like, what? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when people on social media talk about Dakota Kai. It's like, no, you like her and you like her personality, and you watch her video game streams, so you feel like you know her, but she's not a good wrestler. I'm sorry. I think the world of Lyra in the ring, and oh boy, Dakota she just couldn't hang.
Yeah, yeah, it did feel like Lyra was having to slow down for her a few times. Um, look, yeah, I don't want to be cruel either, but I tend
Right.
to agree with your assessment of Dakota. I think there was a time when she first got to NXT and like she was getting beat up by Shayna all the time, where she was taking some really crazy bumps that were a lot of fun. And she, you know, she had a good like scared face for when she was getting menaced by the heels or whatever. But her as like serious wrestler, Dakota Kai, never really clicked with me. So you know, look, you could stick her in a tag if you want, but singles wrestler, I don't think is her ceiling. And it's funny you brought up the New Japan thing because recently, I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, Hiroki Goto finally won the IWGP Championship, and you know
Yeah.
that's a fine move to do because you don't really have the next real top guy ready. So give it to like a gold watch guy, and the fans love Hiroki Goto in Japan. Like he is a guy that they wanted to see get to this level, and he never had. It was a Kofi Mania type of thing. Like he had
Right.
gotten
Yep.
close a few times. He'd had title shots, but he had never been really given the chance. So it was a really nice moment when he won the title and he brought his kids in the ring. It was beautiful. It's like the fans of the World Wrestling Federation are not clamoring by and large to see Dakota Kai win singles gold. They're not really clamoring to see her at all by virtue of the sound they make when she comes out, which is to say nothing. So there's not really a comparison, I think, to like some long suffering baby face who's more over than his push or her push, like Becky or someone was for years before she got really pushed to the top. So,
Right.
you know, nice person. I get that she has a fan base, but it's no wonder to me that she and like Zelina Vega have a Twitch show they do together. I'm like, yeah, that's the same thing. Like the people that are fans of them are obsessed with them and
Yes.
think they're great and are constantly like, oh, I just want her to get a chance. And it's like nobody nobody cares about them when they come out. Nobody makes any noise. And you can blame the booking to a degree, but they're on the shows all the time. It's not like people don't know who they are. Just nobody's ever like really cared that
Right.
they're there. So God bless them all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will say, just as the last addendum on here, it does not do Lyra any favors that the only people who care about her new belt that she's won are Dakota Kai and Ivy Nile.
Well, that's the depth of the Raw Women's division there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know why we split the rosters. I have no earthly idea why we split the rosters when I'm
Or,
watching 3 hour
or,
SmackDowns.
or did two women's mid card titles.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we could have one.
Like all of these girls could be chasing Chelsea for the US title or chasing Lyra for the IC belt or whatever.
Sure.
Instead, it's Chelsea's running from BFAB and Meechin forever, and Lyra is wrestling Ivy Nile and Dakota forever.
There's a very clear delineation between the top people in each division, and then you get to you know, I mean, the men's chamber match is 6 deep, and that's 6 pretty over guys, 6 pretty big stars.
Mm-hmm.
And the women's match, depending on how you feel about Roxanne Perez, I guess that's 5 or 6 really over single stars there. But when you get down to like the Raw tag team division or the SmackDown women's division, the United States SmackDown United States Women's Championship division, it's like, oh, we should not split these rosters. We should have one set of tag belts. We should have one secondary title if we're going to do one, and that's fine. Anyway, do you think I will say Dakota Kai the closest she came to clicking was when she turned on the other lady who tears her ACLs all the time, Tegan Knox in NXT. They had a nice tag team down there for a while, and then they did a War Games, and she turned on her, and it was pretty great. Dakota Kai also, as you mentioned, great facial expressions because she has the face of a cartoon lamb.
Yes.
It's a line I lifted for Modern Family.
I like it. I like it. That's a good one. Yeah, I now that you say that, I do remember that because I remember Regal getting in her face over after she assaulted Tegan Knox
Yeah.
and that being a great moment. And I believe that it led to her getting Raquel as a bodyguard and Raquel
Yep.
immediately becoming the push act out of that group, as is tradition
Yep.
in the World Wrestling Federation.
Yep. Raquel needs to take William Regal's advice about wearing sunglasses indoors. By the way, Regal. Go ahead.
I was just saying I don't know that advice, so
Oh, Regal occasionally used to tweet before he his Twitter became a place where he just talked about what an honorable man he is all the time, and where he posted photos of all of his lizards, which he's been doing this week. Which I enjoy that. I follow him for that wacky stuff, not for whatever. But Regal used to occasionally retweet a thread that he did. It was advice for indie wrestlers or advice for people trying to get looks from the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. And it was like one of his points was the Dwayne Johnson is the exception to the rule not to wear sunglasses indoors. You should not wear sunglasses indoors when you're cutting a promo because you can emote so much more with your eyes or whatever, and that's what WWE's like. It was basically a guide to how to get a look or how to get signed. And it was like, do not wear sunglasses indoors. Anyway, anytime I see Raquel on TV these days with her Judgment Day group, she's wearing like a bandana on her head and she has sunglasses on. And it's like, you're doing way too much.
Well, what else has she got going for her, really?
She's like 6'8" and a tremendous athlete. I don't know how that's translated to good wrestling matches, but
Dresses like Bam Bam Bigelow and wears sunglasses.
Bigelow.
I feel like she has flames on her gear sometimes. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe it's more like Harlem Heat gear. I feel like that's what I.
Yeah, I think that's more apt. Yeah, there's definitely some Stevie Ray there. Yeah.
Okay. In more ways though.
What?
And that she's part of a tag team and she's not a great wrestler.
Yeah, that's true. Hey,
Particularly charismatic.
jeez. Did not expect Stevie Ray to get a drive by here tonight. By the way, the NXT commentary team, worst booth maybe of all time. It's up there with Jonathan Coachman and Michael Cole in 2008 to me. It's that bad. The Vic Joseph, Booker T, Corey Graves trio. Oh, it's look, whatever you think of McAfee, he's not boring. It's like he might be annoying to you. He's not boring. That NXT booth. Oh,
The only time that NXT booth is ever entertaining in the once a month or so that I tune into that show at all is when Booker T and Vic are clearly having a fight on air.
yes.
And Vic is pointing out that Booker doesn't know how to pronounce wrestlers' names and that he's unprepared. And Booker just doesn't care because he's Teflon, because I guess Paul Levesque feels guilty for killing his career in 2003. So he's got a job forever.
It's why he's there. It's why Carlito's there. It's why the Road Dogg's there. It's why Billy Gunn didn't take enough steroids to jack up a rhino. He would still be there. I expect the whole Gun trio to be back one day. I mean, I guess the Gun boys would be there for the first time, but I expect the Gun dad to be there too.
Oh, 100%.
Women's chamber match: Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Naomi, Roxanne Perez. So Bianca and Naomi dropped the tag titles to Liv and Raquel. So I don't know. I don't know who the winner of this is going to be. Liv, Bianca, Naomi would all appear to be paired off already. Bayley and Roxanne are probably paired off. I don't know. Is Alexa Bliss winning this thing? God, I hope not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I I feel like the internet has put the idea that Bianca and Rhea is a match they need to do, and they're maybe on borrowed time because maybe Bianca wants to have kids at some point, and
Right.
once she goes out to do that, she's gone for, I don't know, 18 months minimum.
Right.
So if you're gonna do that, maybe it's a now or never thing, and they're just like, let's pull the trigger on that. I mean, it's I think the biggest singles match they can make as far as full-time wrestlers in the women's division goes. Um, so that's a possibility. It does seem like it would be weird to, if we pull the trigger on, say, Jade coming back and she pairs off with Naomi in a singles feud, as we all suspect will happen. It seems weird that Bianca would just like Homer Simpson into the bushes on that whole thing of like
Right.
her best friend betrayed her and her other best friend, and she's just like, all right, well, I'm busy, so you guys work that out amongst yourselves.
Right.
But I do feel like that's a possibility. Or the other thing would be like I think we talked about it a little bit last week. The only other person that doesn't have an obvious direction for Mania is Alexa and Roxanne. But to your point, it looks like Roxanne and Bayley might be a direction. So, but I could also see Roxanne and Bayley turning into like a tag team who hates each other thing. Because again, you got to get a bunch of these women into makeshift tag teams for WrestleMania for that get everybody on the show match. So
Yeah, that's not a bad call. Yeah, I could totally see that. Alexa, I think it's just going to do SmackDown stuff with the group of circus freaks that she hangs out with. Um, yeah, Bianca makes sense. Also, you could probably never go wrong with picking Liv Morgan anymore in any match.
They do.
Let's do Liv and Rhea again. Why not?
96 times the charm. They're gonna have a good match this time for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I guess Bianca or Raquel would be, or not Raquel, Roxanne would be my choices, but I don't feel like I'm strongly being pulled, or that the TV has strongly pointed towards an obvious winner, the way that I feel like maybe the men's has, but we could talk about that in a minute.
Sure. The men's chamber match. John Cena in his last time in Toronto. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, and Seth Rollins. Priest is kind of perpetual upper mid card guy. He's found a nice spot for himself. Seth Rollins, feel like I haven't seen him wrestle very much in the last year. He's been banged up, but Seth Rollins is always really over, even if he's absolutely infuriating as a character. Logan Paul, good trier. Drew McIntyre, fantastic. CM Punk, I, I love him. And John Cena. I assume John Cena is winning this and gonna go on and face Cody Rhodes, but maybe Dwayne has other plans. I don't know. I don't know why you put John Cena in this match and then not have him win. But anyway, any thoughts on the big six here?
Yeah, so I think we may have talked about this recently. I think Drew and Damian are pairing off for a Mania match on the undercard. So that's makes sense. I don't think either of those guys are winning. And then of the other four, I don't think Logan Paul's winning. They teased him and AJ Styles on Raw this week. That seems like a Mania match they might do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take Logan out of it, you're left with who's that leave us with? Cena, Punk, and Lonnie Donegan, Seth Rollins.
Freaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to purge him from my brain, and he just keeps dancing his way back in. But I just don't think Seth's gonna do something with Roman. So he's not winning. It doesn't make sense for him to win. And then that leaves you with Punk and Cena. I think there's going to be a specter of Dwayne hung over whatever Cody is doing for Mania. I think Cody's gonna say hell no to The Rock on Sunday or Saturday when the show happens, and then
Saturday. Yep.
the Rock is going to make a similar overture to John Cena, and then it'll be, will John Cena turn heel in order to accomplish his goal of winning the title for the 17th time at WrestleMania, and there will be and the specter of Dwayne will just hang over the match, and he'll be ringside for the match. Or if we're lucky, he'll wait 30 minutes into the match to come down like he did last year, and then we'll pretend that the near falls still matter until he shows up, like we did with Cody and Roman last year. So yeah, I think Cena's gonna win, and then he, and depending on Dwayne's schedule and depending on Cena's schedule, I guess, and Cody, I think that's your night two main event is who's gonna turn. Is Cena gonna turn in order to get his final title? Seems insane to me, the idea to actually turn John Cena heel if this is actually his last year as a wrestler. But you can at least, you could flirt with it, and then you can have him ultimately decide to not go down that road, and give Dwayne the attitude adjustment at WrestleMania, and then Cody can beat him and keep the title or something. I don't know. You do whatever you want at that point. But I think it's Cena, Cody, and with a heaping helping of Dwayne sprinkled throughout for WrestleMania. So that's my my pick to win the Chamber.
All righty. Hey, Stephanie McMahon's going to launch the official WWE podcast. So it looks like we may have competition in the podcast space, the second wrestling podcast. Maybe. It may not be about wrestling, though. I don't know.
Well, I mean, as Michael Cole just recently said on Impulsive, they're not a wrestling company. You have to remember. They're an entertainment company. So she might be launching the first entertainment podcast. But
if anyone watched Michael Cole on that thing, on Logan Paul's podcast, he probably would have flushed whatever goodwill he's garnered with the audience over the last year and a half.
mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody did, but boy. I was like, oh,
Drinking the Kool-Aid, man. He is.
am I am I watching Michael Cole, or is this Vince McMahon's son?
Yeah, he sucked. They did make fun of how his shirt was too tight on
Yes.
Raw this Monday. That was funny.
Yeah. Hey, someone who occasionally has to buy a dress shirt from the Men's Warehouse.
Sure.
Let me just say, I am between sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, so this size will fit you well everywhere but in your belly. And because I carry my weight like a pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
And this size, it will not be tight on your belly, but it will be gigantic and like a tent everywhere else on you. I'm between dress shirt sizes, so I have a little empathy for Michael Cole on that specific point, but nothing else. Great, great, great digression. Good Lord. I'm so sorry. Uh,
Listen, of
so
all the things to mock Michael Cole about, you are right that finding a shirt that fits is not one of them.
Roman Reigns is going to be on some SmackDown shows in the build to WrestleMania this year. I guess this year's European tour, because of where WrestleMania falls on the calendar, is going to be before WrestleMania, which honest to God makes a ton more sense. And they probably should have been doing this a long time ago. But we're getting John Cena on a lot of shows internationally, and we're getting Roman Reigns on some international shows. So if you live in the United States, tough luck.
Well, they've popped all the houses here already. You just got to be a little. You got to hold back on buying those tickets in the U.S. and then they'll start adding Roman and John to those shows. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, let's throw them on some European. John Cena's last time in Nuremberg or whatever, you know.
Yep. Yep. AEW is on the road to Revolution. They have Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita on that show. They have John Moxley against the Rated R superstar Cope on that show. Cope is taking out the Death Riders one by one, or two by one this week, as he took out both Marina Shafir and Claudio after he took out Pac on last week's Collision, where we both immediately thought, well, Pac's going to be off TV for the next 8 months. He disappears for months at a time every year, presumably because some kind of personal relationship that he has in the United Kingdom, which, hey, I respect that greatly.
Yeah, I mean,
On the other hand, they never address why he's just gone for 8 months at a time.
it's a hell of a deal if you can get it. I mean, yeah, at least they bothered to write him off this time as opposed to the last few times where he just kind of stopped appearing on television for 4 months at a time and then just showed back up one week. So
This Moxley Cope thing heated up for you at all? As they've had Cope kind of picking off the Death Riders, or no?
I mean, it's at least they have varied up the format of these shows in the last month or so. No longer every show is just top to bottom heel wins and heels laying out baby faces every week.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we're grading on the on the most generous of curves, then yeah, the shows are better lately than they have been because it's been more evened out as far as baby faces getting to stand tall and get one over on the heels for a bit of a change. But it still unfortunately got to leave to a wrestling match between the Rated R superstar Cope and John Moxley, and neither one of those guys has had a good or great wrestling match in a really long time.
It is stylistically. I'm just as you were speaking there, I was stylistically trying to picture this match, and it's not a beautiful match.
No, I feel like they're gonna try to like New Japan Grandpa it. Like it's gonna be a lot of like chopping and forearms and stuff.
Well, I mean, Mox hasn't done blood in a while, I guess. You could probably bleed here, right?
Yeah, I guess so. There is also like a cage match on this show, and I don't think they've set a stip, but I assume Mariah and Tony have to have a stip for their blow off match if this is indeed the blow off match for them.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, you could still just do blood in a regular wrestling match. To your point, that's never been a problem for John Moxley before. But, yeah, I mean, like, I believe Cope's words, if I can recall when he returned a few months ago, and what a return it was. At the press conference, he's like, "I want to have a gritty, old school NWA title match with Mox," were his words. So that to me sounds like some squeezing, some chopping, and blood. So, and also that it'll go 45 minutes long, which honestly sounds awful, but maybe given the Rated R superstar Cope's advanced age, perhaps we'll maybe cut that time in half. Maybe they'll just go like 20.
Oh,
Which
well,
which is still about 12 minutes too long. But
one time, I would love someone to have the guts to do a 5 minute main event.
why not?
You can. There's no shortage of great wrestling, particularly on an AEW show on the undercard.
Mm-hmm.
You can. Let's just run down the rest of the. Hang on. We all good? You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. We have Takeshita versus Omega for the International Championship. I suspect 40 minutes, and I suspect it'll be great.
Yeah.
Tony and Mariah May, Hollywood ending. They haven't said what that means yet, but it hints at some kind of blow off or some kind of street fight stipulation or something along those lines. Fine. The match, whatever, but really over story for it's played out for almost a year. Mercedes Moné Watanabe. That is a women's Japanese work rate match. That'll be fine. I can't imagine it'll have much heat because it's Momo. But MJF and Hangman Page, horrible feud. I hate it. But the fans seem to like it. Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher in a cage. What more do you want? Let's do a 5 minute main event where Mox and Cope let's. We don't have to do the Paul Heyman finisher spam match, but just beat the hell out of each other for 5 minutes and then go home. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be fine. I was thinking about that. The last time I can remember that was Brock and Joe had a match at, I believe it was WWE Great Balls of Fire, if I'm not mistaken. Man lost
Sounds right
in the 2010s, like in so many interesting ways. But anyway, and it's literally, I think it's sub 10 minutes. It might be sub 8. And it is the Paul Heyman, finishers, big moves, barricade break, table break stuff, which again, you don't have to do all of that. But you could, but it's like one of my favorite WWE matches of the last 10 years, probably. And it was less than 10 minutes and nobody felt ripped off at the end because they got what was advertised, which was a really good fight between two big scary mofos. So like you can just, this is a war between two gritty tough guys. So yeah, just beat each other up, double juice, 2 minutes in, go to finish after minute 5. Would be great. It won't happen, but it would be great. It would be a very welcomed. I would get on here and say nice things about the Rated R Superstar Cope, and you know how I hate to do that.
Yes. Boy, looking at Great Balls of Fire, 2017, July 9th, 2017. The pre-show match, Pac defeats Akira Tozawa.
Probably
for the WWE in a singles match.
A crowd that couldn't care less.
Yep, 11 minutes 40 seconds for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. Main card opener. Bray Wyatt defeated Seth Rollins. Okay. Big Cass defeated Enzo Amore.
Oof.
5 minutes 25 seconds. Cesaro and Sheamus defeated the Hardy Boys in a 30-minute Iron Man match. Oof. 4 falls to 3. Singles match for the Raw Women's Championship. Sasha Banks defeated Alexa Bliss, the champion, by countout, so the title didn't change hands.
Is that the match where they started shooting on each other halfway through?
Not
literally, but I think there was like bloody.
I remember, right. There usually were when those two got together. The Miz defeated Dean Ambrose by pinfall in a singles match to retain the Intercontinental Championship. Braun Strowman defeated Roman Reigns in an ambulance match. What?
Sure.
Okay. The semi-main event went 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and it was Heath Slater defeating Kurt Hawkins.
What? That had to be
Heath Slater defeated Kurt
to something. Like they had to like cut away from that, like something going on in the back or something.
possibly, probably, I don't know. Main event, 6 minutes, 25 seconds. Brock Lesnar defeated Samoa Joe.
Yeah, that match was awesome, but what a one match show in retrospect.
It's just bizarre. Just utterly bizarre up and down. Anyway. Speaking of the Hardy Boys, they were on NXT this week. Everyone everyone is excited to see the Hardy Boys.
Hardy men.
Who we have look, man, it's there's a spot for the Hardys in wrestling, unfortunately. And it may as well be NXT. I don't know, man.
I think PW Insider or somebody was talking about how there's optimism for a main roster run this summer for the Hardy men. So
Why?
hey,
My question is why?
I mean, is Jeff Hardy on the list of Paul amends that he needs to make for doing everything he could to kill his career in 2001 and 2005 and 2008 and I don't know.
I suppose that's a decent possibility.
I was thinking I saw a
Um,
picture of the Hardy Boys with Sean from NXT, and I was like, none of these people really ever interacted. Like Sean, I mean, Matt was on SmackDown forever, so it kind of makes sense. And Sean was always on Raw because Bible study was on
right,
Tuesdays. Um, so that kind of makes sense. But it's like Sean and Jeff never really interact. Like there's no good or bad like backstage stories to my knowledge about like Sean the Hardys running afoul of Sean or Sean having any input in like any part of their careers, which is fascinating to me because he pops up in a lot of guys backstage stories, and I don't feel like there's any Matt or Jeff Shawn Michaels stories.
Do you remember the year where they were building Jeff up to challenge for the title at Mania, and then he got suspended right before Mania?
Yes.
Sean put him over on a Raw that year, in that build while they were like building Jeff up.
Oh, okay.
Sean just put him over clean. Like I haven't watched it in the 18 years since it happened or whatever, but I vividly remember that because I remember people being like, Shawn Michaels doesn't do clean jobs. And Shawn Michaels just like put Jeff over because Jeff is the next guy. And yeah, so I'd have to go on Cage Match or whatever and find whichever Raw that was. But to your point, yes. I mean, Shawn was pretty much out by the time they were on the ascent.
Mm.
They were jobbers the first couple of years they were there.
Right.
And when Sean was on top, and then Sean was out for 4 years, and they kind of were in the mid card all those years. So yeah, yeah. But I vividly remember the discussion, the discourse about Sean putting Jeff over, and everybody being shocked that like he actually put him over. He didn't try to get out of it. He didn't hurt his knee right before. He just he just put over Jeff Hardy. That's incredible. Anyway, Jeff Hardy was really over.
Yes. More over than Obama in 2008, some people like to say.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's see. We've covered the NXT stuff. NXT has they have big shows the next couple of weeks. Ricky Saints debuted on that show. Ricky Saints.
Ricky Saints. It's a dumb name, but it's not as dumb as I was hoping.
Yeah. Julie and Stephanie Becker are gonna wrestle in New York on March 11th. The loser is gonna have to take some time off because they're hurt, apparently. Hardys will wrestle Fraxium on that show for the TNA tag titles, but not for the NXT tag titles. Weird. The other big story we haven't talked about this week is Dolph Ziggler's Hermano, Ryan Nemeth, filed a lawsuit middle of February against CM Punk, Tony Khan, and AEW. And this complaint came out. Let's see. The lawsuit was filed Friday, February 14th. And then the word came out sometime over the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, last Saturday or last Sunday. Anyway, Nemeth is suing for assault, breach of contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, and intentional interference with prospective advantage, saying that he got blackballed, and his complaint appeared to be either written by AI or I can't think of a good bad cartoon lawyer,
Matt
but
Ribot's lawyer.
who printed his stuff on address labels. Yeah. Um. Anyway, I assume this is going to go nowhere, and he's just angling for a settlement. But to sue, he's alleging assault, presumably on Punk. Although I don't know that we ever had.
The
I don't know.
complaint says assault and then proceeds to describe the incident that I believe was already reported on at the time, or maybe it was reported on when Punk was fired,
Right.
but that he had gone up, like gotten in Little Ziggler's face at a collision taping where Ziggler was there to do a job on ROH after the show or whatever, and
Right.
said like, "Do we have a problem?" And you're not welcome in my locker room or something, and basically told him to get his stuff and go.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is, you could say CM Punk didn't, as far as, I mean, maybe he did. He had some kind of employee contract with AEW that's never been quite made clear to me what it was.
Right.
But was not officially in a position of power, and maybe he shouldn't have done that. And you can, I mean, all of the issues of hierarchy and Tony not be wanting to be the bad guy have been discussed ad nauseum in the past. So, like, you could certainly say that's a sign of terrible management. I don't know if that quantifies assault, though I am not a legal expert. So perhaps there is some type of a verbal assault. Is that still an implied threat of what would happen to him if he didn't pack his stuff and leave Punk's locker room? I don't know. But yeah, it was, I think, worth it, because if you're going to do a sham lawsuit, it is good to put in a bunch of lines about how, like, Punk was Tony Khan's hero, and and Tony Khan was brokenhearted when he had to fire Punk for punching Jungle Jack, and Tony Khan blamed Ryan Nemeth for having to fire Punk, and it's just ruined. It's ruined Tony Khan's life because he's because he's so in love with CM Punk. It's like, if you're gonna do a sham lawsuit, at least get a lot of funny little digs in there. That was, whenever he typed this up in Chat GPT, he was like, "Yeah, make sure to put in a bunch of stuff about how Tony Khan is gay for CM Punk."
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely did that. It definitely had that feel to it. You have to ignore a lot of facts to even begin to consider this.
Yes, like
Uh,
like that Ryan Nemeth has been blackballed by the industry as a result of this,
it's
while he's
like
on TNA wrestling NXT guys.
he's on TNA every week, and it's like he's just the lackey for his brother, but it's also the best spot he's ever had in his entire life, right?
Right.
Like Ziggler's been doing a storyline suspension for the last month. So Nemeth is like making matches for himself in his brother's absence or whatever, and it's the best spot he's ever had. It's, you have to ignore that Jack Perry and CM Punk ever had a brouhaha, if I can invoke a little French,
Please do.
to begin to take this seriously. I have no idea, man. If you're angling for a settlement, which presumably is what this is, because Nemeth had filed a complaint with AEW before, but this is like, I guess he got no resolution from that, and so this is now he's just looking for money. Yeah, he's looking for a settlement.
Right.
I don't know why you would. I don't know. This is it's all very silly to me. And poor Punk, this guy, he's just always in court. How does that happen?
I don't know. That's a guy who so famously hates drama and is
Yes,
so easy to get along with. I don't
yes,
know how this guy keeps finding himself in these situations.
he's always in court somehow. Let's see. Anything else coming up? Oh, Layla Hirsch is on her way out of AEW. It looks like her contract's up and it looks like not renewed. So I don't know.
Looked like someone who had a spark for a minute. Was getting more of a push before AEW's division, women's division, was really kind of like filled out with more good workers. And then she got hurt in
Yes.
this year, and then came back, and I think got hurt again. So it's tough, you know. Certainly not without talent, good athlete. Also like 4'5".
Yeah,
So
that's a knock.
yeah. But I was like, even per petite pro wrestling women's standards, she was a very, very tiny lady. So I don't know. Like I said, I could certainly see her popping up in TNA or NXT or something, but I don't necessarily love her prospects of getting a bigger shove there. So we'll see.
Only other thing I wanted to touch on is the story this week from Conrad Thompson and Eric Bischoff's one of their podcasts about Vince McMahon um, poking around wrestling and allegedly starting a new wrestling promotion. And then their report was allegedly Fox is quote unquote holding a place for Vince. That's not how it works. But to me, that story was like, and then Fox immediately, one of the Sports Business Journal people or the athletic reporters asked Fox about it. And they're like, no, there's nothing to this. To me, that was a classic. If you're a BS artist, not saying that Conrad is, but if you're a BS artist, a way to maybe lend some credibility to your story is to mix elements of the truth with a sensational lie. So we know Vince McMahon has a company. We know that whoever the former co-COOs or whoever who used to work in WWE in the 2010s, he has a lot of those kinds of people working for him. And I'm not sure if this is Alpha Entertainment officially or whatever his company's name is. And I'm sure he's sniffing around wrestling because it's the only thing he's ever been successful at. And I think before TKO would let Vince McMahon start a rival wrestling company, TKO would bring Vince McMahon back, and they just have to get this lawsuit where he's accused of sexual assault and sex trafficking. You got to get that settled. Anyway,
Yeah.
did you have any thoughts on the Vince McMahon story this week?
I mean, really, my only thought or hope is that he hires and fires Eric Bischoff again as part of this. But other than that, yeah, no, I think you're pretty on the money. We've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, as I think you referred to it as the most underreported story in wrestling, or under talked about story in wrestling, is that he's clearly going to be back because, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way that TKO wants Vince McMahon running a wrestling company that could in any way you know, be foreseen as competition to them. So
Right.
yeah, and as far as like, oh, would they take him back after his public image? I once again point you to the guy running UFC who struck his wife in front of the entire world on camera and received absolutely no pushback or even consideration of being ousted from that role. So
18 months later, he was speaking at the Republican National Convention.
yeah, he's America's best friend in many ways. So uh Dana's just fine working in a company like UFC. They can bring Vince back. Will he be running the show, going to Raw every week? If he has his way, he will. But more so, I think they'll which I think again you've probably pointed to. It's like they want him to like go be at the table for when they're meeting with the Saudi prince, deciding how many propaganda shows they're going to get as part of the deal in the coming years. They want him as a mascot to go sit, ringside at boxing matches and live
Right.
golf tournaments and whatever else. Like that's
Exactly.
Vince McMahon role at this point. It's just to be a recognizable face at the table at these sorts of things. Like I don't think he's coming back to, as funny as it would be as if he came back and ousted Paul again. I don't think that's in the cards.
Do you think there's anything to the Conrad's thing was why the hell would Vince McMahon be at the Super Bowl? Vince McMahon's never gone to a football game that he wasn't promoting. Uh, Fox held the Super Bowl, or Fox had the Super Bowl this year. Did Fox was Vince at the Super Bowl to talk turkey with Fox? Anything to that? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. He was with the Undertaker and Shane.
Shane McMahon,
I mean, hey, Tony
his
Khan
two
was there, too.
friends.
Yeah. Um.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like a canary in the coal mine. Let's pop his head out, on a very public event and see if anybody gets mad. Again, whether that's
Right.
him doing that himself as a defiant, like, I'm unbothered and here I am doing regular rich man activities, or that's
Right.
them like testing the waters of like, all right, nobody really seemed to care other than like some jokes on Twitter. I'm sorry, about on X, the everything app. Um, so what are we? So that's like a little water testing of like, all right, he can just kind of walk around in public and nobody's throwing tomatoes at him. Like he'll, so we can
Right.
start letting him show up again. Just show up to be a mascot and be a presence for various events where they think his presence will like impress people that don't really pay attention to wrestling but just know who Vince McMahon is.
Yeah. Just like to clarify, I've been entertained a lot over the years by Conrad Thompson's podcasts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't. There's a place for what he does. I just am not going to him for hard news. I think is my big takeaway from this. But hey, maybe Vince McMahon will have a wrestling promotion on Fox. I doubt it, but anyway. All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, we should talk about that. We should also probably get an update on Freddie Prinze Jr.'s wrestling promotion that he's coming out with soon. Just, I'm sure that's coming any day as well.
It's particularly given WWE booted him off those A&E shows that he was hosting for them, and they replaced him with a comedian named Fluffy.
Oh, Freddie.
I was at the Raw in St. Louis where Freddie Prinze Jr. was the guest host.
Oh, he takes an RKO or something on that show, right?
Sounds right. I don't know. I remember Santino Morella doing a very bad Jack Bauer bit because Freddie Prinze was on one season of 24. And I remember Shawn Michaels returned on that show to reform DX after like he had taken the summer off after WrestleMania, like he did for the last few years of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a joke of they were literally had to drag him out of the car to get him onto the show. And it's like, well, they weren't kidding. That was pretty much a shoot. They did have to drag him out of the car, but there's a very funny line where Hunter gets out of the car and then Sean's still in the car. And Sean's like, Hunter's like, come on. And Sean's like, oh, no, I've decided I'm not ready. He just says it in a very like Muppet voice. It's very funny.
I do vaguely
Great
remember
story.
that was Sean's Ocean's 13 year. He's like, he's not coming
Yes.
back for the craft. He's coming back just to hang out with his friends for a couple more months.
Yes, that was it. He gave him their date a year and a half in advance. It's like, I'm retiring at this WrestleMania. Great story. Sorry for all the digressions. And until next time, I'm Ethan.
And I'm Liam.
We'll be back soon with more stories from the wrestling life.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Now, here are this week's bonus features.
We are the Brothers of Digression. Any more Gene Hackman news come out after me?
I haven't looked since whatever time this afternoon we were talking about that. Yeah, so I log on to the Cursed X app at 7 o'clock in the morning when I'm going to bed, and
X, the everything app where you do your banking and
ugh,
whatever
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, of course.
It's really just a lot of hate speech and right-wing ideas.
Yeah, it's the darndest thing. That stuff does seem to get pushed to the surface, whether you follow any of those people or not. Weird.
I swear I've blocked Musk more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, anyway. And I see a story from Variety and a story from the New York Post that Gene Hackman's dead. And it's like, oh, well, he's 96 years old. That's not surprising. And then it's like Gene Hackman, his wife, and their dog have all been found dead in their New Mexico home. And you're like, wait a minute. And then your police say foul play is not suspected, and they want the neighborhood to know no one is in danger. And I'm like, hang on. Okay, the 96-year-old man, his 63-year-old wife, and their dog all found dead. Foul play not suspected. What? This is the guy, the wife, and the dog were looking at some kind of murder suicide or some kind of carbon monoxide leak or something along those lines. And just no new news appears. So I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like the most recent statement was well, yeah, no, this is the same thing. They sent out I guess they're going to be tested for carbon monoxide poisoning. There was no signs of a gas leak according to the gas company. So, I mean,
Mm.
seems like they would have a vested interest in wanting to clear out gas leak as a possibility, but
Yeah.
I'll trust that that's true. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't that sort of thing doesn't just happen every day. So it was an oddly reported story.
So then, yeah, 6 hours later, he's, second wave of reports comes out that, like, well, police are investigating the death as suspicious. And it is suspicious when a guy, his wife, and his dog all die in the same house at the same time.
Correct. Like even right, there might be an explanation for it, but
Yes.
to unilaterally declare it completely non-suspicious when I think they found the front door was open or unlocked at least. I wasn't sure if open meant ajar or just not locked, but
Right.
I was like, I don't know, that seems could be nothing. Could be they just forgot to lock it and then everybody passed out and but also there were still two dogs in the house that were alive. So if it's like, how did carbon monoxide get one dog and the two people, but not the other two dogs? I don't know.
What? I
Point
see.
being,
I didn't even know, but there were two other dogs found alive. See,
Mhm.
you've.
one was in the bathroom, and I think one was outside. So maybe there's again, maybe they were just in a part of the house. Maybe a window was open. Maybe they were just lucky. I don't know how quickly one dies when exposed to carbon monoxide. Uh, so like I said, there it could still be that, I guess, and the other two dogs were just lucky or in the right parts of the house to not be exposed. But again, it goes back to the unilateral declaration that nothing that there's nothing to see here before we really seem to know anything.
Yeah, and that's that. Ugh. Anyway, oh boy. Well, before we do a Gene Hackman tribute show, I would just like to point out I did enjoy him in the Superman movies.
Oh yeah, he's great.
I try to keep on keeping on.